People always said I was lucky. A devoted husband, a comfortable home, a life others envied. From the outside, it looked like I had everything. And for a while, I believed I did. Daniel and I had been married for 6 years. He was the kind of man who remembered anniversaries, opened car doors, and brought coffee to my bedside every morning. He worked hard, long hours at a law firm, always chasing the next promotion. I told myself he was doing it for us, for our future. And maybe he was. But in the quiet spaces between his deadlines and my loneliness, something started to erode. We weren't fighting. That would have made the problem easier to name. Instead, we drifted gently, almost imperceptibly. The kind of distance that doesn't come with slamming doors or screaming matches, but with polite conversations and the silence between them. He'd come home exhausted, kiss me on the forehead, eat dinner half distracted, and fall asleep watching television. I stopped asking him to stay up and talk. He stopped noticing that I'd stopped. I tried. I really did. New recipes, weekend plans, subtle touches when he walked past. But his eyes were always somewhere else, on his phone, his laptop, his stress. He wasn't unkind, just unavailable. And I was too proud to beg. There's a particular kind of ache that comes from being forgotten by someone who still claims to love you. I began to feel invisible, present, but unseen. Like furniture in the room, he passed every day without ever really noticing. I told myself it was just a phase, that marriages go through cycles, that if I held on long enough, the warmth would return. I kept smiling through the hollowness, wearing the mask of a happy wife. But inside, I was unraveling. It was during one of those quiet evenings, alone in our living room, wine glass in hand, television murmuring in the background, that I allowed the thought to form. Is this it? Is this what the rest of my life will feel like? I didn't want to admit it, but I was starving. Not for sex or luxury or attention from strangers, but for connection. For intimacy. For someone to ask how my day was and genuinely listen. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to feel seen until I no longer did. That night, I stared at Daniel as he slept, his back to me. Peaceful. Trusting. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt entirely alone. I didn't know it then, but something had already begun to shift. Not in him, but in me. And once it started, it wouldn't stop. I met Eric at a marketing workshop I almost didn't attend. Daniel had encouraged me to go, said it might help get me out of the house, though he barely looked up from his laptop when he said it. I remember standing in front of the mirror that morning, applying mascara like it mattered, like someone might actually notice. Eric did. He wasn't spectacularly handsome, but he had a way of making people feel important when he spoke to them. His eyes held contact just a second longer than they should. His smile lingered, playful but harmless. He complimented my presentation, said I had presence. It had been months, maybe years, since someone looked at me like I was interesting. It started with harmless banter. We exchanged email addresses to share resources. Then text messages. Then phone calls. Always professional, until they weren't. He remembered details, that I hated mornings, that I bit my lip when I was nervous. He noticed things Daniel had long stopped seeing. I told myself it was innocent, that I just enjoyed being heard, admired, that it wasn't dangerous if we never crossed a line. But we did. One rainy Thursday, after a late networking event, Eric offered to walk me to my car. The parking lot was empty. The air was damp, thick with silence. I turned to say goodbye, but the moment held. His eyes met mine. No words. Just a pull. Magnetic, terrifying, inevitable. The kiss was brief, electric, wrong in every way. My heart pounded as I drove home. I told myself it was a mistake. That I wouldn't respond to his next message. That I would never let it go further. But the next message came, and I answered. It wasn't just physical. That would have been easier to condemn. It was emotional, texts late at night, inside jokes, long conversations about life, dreams, regrets. He made me feel like a woman again, not just someone's wife. I laughed more in those stolen moments than I had in months. I felt alive, desired. And yet, guilt clung to me like perfume I couldn't wash off. Daniel noticed I smiled more, but didn't ask why. He thanked me for being more patient lately, and my stomach twisted. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, and yet, I didn't stop. Eric wasn't perfect. He was bold, cocky, persistent. He knew I was married and didn't seem to care. I told myself I was still in control, that I could end it whenever I wanted, that no one was getting hurt. But I was wrong. The lie wasn't just in what I was hiding from Daniel, it was in what I was becoming to myself. I had opened a door I couldn't close, and with each passing day, the air between right and wrong grew thinner. The affair didn't make me happier. Not really. At first, it felt like a secret garden, somewhere I could breathe, where I wasn't just a wife left waiting. But over time, it became a prison with velvet walls. Soft, tempting, and suffocating. I began living two lives. In one, I was Daniel's wife, cooking dinner, folding laundry, smiling when friends came over. In the other, I was someone else entirely. Someone bold, desired, selfish. The worst part wasn't the lying. It was how easy it became. I'd grown used to texting Eric during lunch breaks and slipping back into domestic routine like nothing had happened. Daniel never suspected. He still kissed me goodbye every morning, still told me he loved me every night. And every time he did, my heart broke a little more. I started crying in the shower, where no one could hear me. I hated what I was doing. I hated the person I was becoming. But I couldn't stop. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd end things with Eric eventually. I just wasn't ready. The moments with Eric began to shift. What once felt exciting started to feel heavy. He grew more possessive, irritated when I took too long to respond. He asked if I'd leave Daniel. I dodged the question. He called me a coward. Maybe he was right. Then one night, Daniel came home with a surprise. He'd booked us a weekend away. Just the two of us. "We need this," he said, his eyes soft and searching. I nodded, heart hammering, throat dry. We drove to a cabin in the hills. It was quiet, beautiful, everything we hadn't been for months. That first night, we sat by the fire. He poured wine, took my hand. I remember thinking, maybe this is the moment I tell him the truth. Maybe we can survive it. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I smiled and leaned into his shoulder, pretending. He kissed my forehead, and I closed my eyes, hating myself more than ever. I began pulling away from Eric after that. Shorter replies. Canceled plans. He noticed. Called me cold. Accused me of using him. Maybe I had. Maybe we'd used each other. But Daniel, he still looked at me like I was worth something. Like I hadn't already betrayed everything we built. His kindness made the guilt unbearable. It wasn't fear of being caught that haunted me. It was knowing I didn't deserve his trust. His quiet belief in us became a mirror, showing me everything I was destroying. Every lie I told him carved deeper into my conscience. The affair hadn't filled the emptiness. It had multiplied it. I wanted out. But I didn't know how to leave without tearing both of our lives apart. And by then, it was already too late. It happened on a Sunday. Daniel was folding laundry while I cleaned out my purse. My phone slipped from the pile and hit the floor, screen still lit. I saw his eyes flick toward it, and then they froze. One message. Just one. From Eric. Can't stop thinking about last night. Wish you could have stayed longer. Time slowed. I saw it register in his face. Shock first, then stillness. The kind of silence that chokes a room. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me, like I was someone else. I tried to speak, but no words came. My throat tightened. The silence stretched between us, sharp and unbearable. Finally, he asked, "How long?" Not who or why. Just how long. I broke. Tears. Rambling confessions. Apologies spilling out too fast, too late. I told him everything. The loneliness, the mistakes, the guilt. I begged him to understand, not to forgive, just to see how broken I was when I did it. He didn't yell, didn't throw anything. He just stood there, like something inside him had caved in. "I thought we were okay," he said softly. "I thought we were just tired, that we'd find our way back." I nodded through sobs. So did I. He packed a bag that night. No drama. No final words. Just a door closing behind him and the echo of everything we once were. The next few days passed in a blur. I stared at walls, answered no calls, ate nothing. I expected anger, screaming, something to punish me. But Daniel gave me nothing. Only distance. Eric tried to call. I blocked him. I didn't want him. I never truly did. He was a mirror, reflecting what I'd lost in myself, not what I needed. Weeks passed. I moved through life like a ghost, showing up for work, making small talk, pretending. But every room felt emptier. Every familiar routine now carried the weight of everything I destroyed. People think betrayal ends with confession. That once the truth is out, the worst is over. But the worst is the aftermath. The silence. The absence. The reflection. Daniel never came back. We divorced quietly, without blame on paper. Just two names separating on a line. But it wasn't just a marriage that ended. It was a version of myself I could never return to. I learned that betrayal doesn't always come from hatred or malice. Sometimes it's born from silence, from unmet needs, from the slow erosion of connection. But no reason ever justifies the damage it leaves behind. If I could go back, I would scream louder, ask harder, fight sooner. Anything but what I did. Now I live with the memory of a man who loved me without conditions, and the shame of knowing I wasn't enough to protect that love. Some mistakes teach you. Others brand you. Mine did both.